sun to fly up to the sky. My whole life was ahead of me. I remember getting on the bus that day. I remember sitting down in the front of the bus, a googly-eyed young girl with eyes like fireflies and a smile like the sunrise, just trying to get my way to school. I remember trying to get my way to school, and I remember feeling that hand on my shoulder telling me to raise up from the front. You don't sit in the front. Your kind is not welcome here. Take 10 steps back and step to the back. I remember that time when my heart started skipping a beat. My heart became a whistling drum beat that whistled to the silhouette of crashing M16s. My heartbeat was beating out of my chest, palpitating so powerfully to the point where I swear everyone else on the bus felt my emotion in that moment when I didn't want to move. I thought about moving to avoid causing a scene, as if my compassion would mix with the passion and understand that the action would create a systemic and equal reaction on that bus. With eyes that looked at me and split my skin apart and ripped it off of my body, C-sectioning my soul into sections because I didn't want to move in the front of the bus. And I tried to move my legs to the left, go for a right, and a left, go for a right. But I swear to God that I felt like Tubman was on my left and Harriet was on my right. So I was too right to remix the wrong. So I left myself right in that seat and I told myself that I wasn't going to move. I told myself that hopefully one day this will spark a movement of systemic change, a systemic like an anomaly, something like a supernova. I told myself that I was a chain reaction that day. Told myself that when they dragged me off the bus by my ankles, letting my skirt show for the whole world to see my queendom in this kingdom. I told myself that I wouldn't cry that day. I told myself that those tears would not rush down my eyes, that I would be strong, that this was a standing movement that would go on for women, that would go on centuries after centuries, that women's suffrage ended and began right here in this moment, that me, as a 15-year-old girl, would show the world that I'm a strong woman with pride on the inside of my chest. I told myself this when they dragged me into the jail cell for not moving from the front of the bus. I told myself this as my parents had to come and get me with eyes like raging rivers crashing around their skin. The tears that they cried were shattering the impacts of the young girl I had to be. Made me remind myself that a young girl sometimes shouldn't go through pain this tough, but if it does happen, it's for a reason. I told myself this when my parents took me home. I told myself this when I had a meeting with the civil rights leaders of the time, which included Dr. King, Lipton Freedom, Wells State Wing. I told myself this thing as I let the tears gush down my eyes, as they decided not to use me for this moment and this cause. I told myself that I don't want to be forgotten in history. I told myself that a 15-year-old black girl should be able to fly and soar at the head of a civil rights movement. I warned myself this would happen if I stood up to inequality. I warned myself this would happen if I didn't tolerate inhumanity. I warned myself, but the part of me that warned myself couldn't fight with the part of me that said fight on and be strong, because in this moment you will inspire millions in a nation. I told myself this when I was told that I couldn't be used for the civil rights cause by the very leaders of civil rights, because I was raped by the man next door, and because I was pregnant. It was too much of a silent, shattering, shifting Katrina slung over the deepest fret of the hatred of my psyche. It was too much of a non-political action. You couldn't be sympathetic to a young black girl with a baby on the way, never realizing that the baby was from a man next door that I didn't even know, but just decided to have a chance at tools to crack the code of my queendom. I told myself I wouldn't cry. I told myself tears wouldn't gush down my face because I wouldn't be able to reap the benefits of being a strong woman, that I'd be forgotten in history, that 9 months later, Rosa Parks would get all the glory and the credit as being the first black woman not to move in front of the bus. I told myself I wouldn't cry. I told myself to be strong. Told myself that the 4 other women that were with me, included 100 years later with Miss Ida B. Wells, would be the individual reasons why I will keep pushing forward. Told myself that the historic case that I was involved in, Browder versus Gale, the Supreme Court case that was ruling against segregation within the Montgomery bus system, I told myself that I would stand strong on the court. I told myself that I would forgive the leaders of civil rights when they told me they didn't want to use me to champion the cause. I told myself that I would go ahead and testify at 15 years old with eyes promising, gazing like a sunrise to a court that didn't want me to be there in the first place and didn't make a room for me in that last place. I told myself I wouldn't cry in the courtroom when I had to testify in front of Supreme Court justices, when I had to become a part of history that would later forget me. I told myself that I would be brave and strong. I told myself that when the case was finally rendered, when Browder versus Gale was rendered, discrimination and segregation on the Montgomery bus boycotting system in Alabama was nullified and void, that I would celebrate with the other women, such as Marie Louise and Ida B. Wells. I told myself that we would be remembered in history. I lied to myself on that day so that the legacy of civil rights can live forward. But I told myself that I made a promise to myself that I would change history. So that